videos, trying to pretend he knows about the issues when he really doesn't. The one thing that anybody can say about me, I'm going to shoot straight. I'm going to try to give the facts as best I can. And that's what people want. They want somebody that's got their back, not anybody else's. And that's what our campaign is all about. Thanks to you guys, and thanks to you and your help, we're going to get this done, and we're going to make it happen on November 3rd. And we'll have a full 6-year term to really make the differences in Alabama that we all know are possible for the state. So thank you. Thank you, Lisa, very much. Happy to hang around for a while and either talk, answer questions, or just listen to comments, whatever's going on in your mind. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Senator, for those remarks. I'm sure our audience is very eager to ask you some questions. I know there's a lot going on, like you kind of touched on already. Just a reminder to everyone, if you have any questions, please submit those in the Q&A box below. You should be able to see that on your screen. When we call out your name to read your question, we will ask you to unmute yourself. Mute yourself, please, and then you can ask the senator your question. We do ask that you please be quick and concise with your questions so that we can allow as many people as we can to ask questions in the time frame that we have, and respect everyone and the senator's time here. So we will start off. It looks like, Senator, we have a question from Lori Bond. Are you there, Lori?
Make sure you unmute, Lori.
All right, well, I'll ask it here. Lori's question is, how can you stop the destruction of the USPS? I know you kind of touched on that, but what can you do specifically to stop the destruction of the USPS?
It's going to be difficult because we got to get more money. And we've got to get better oversight. Gary Peters from Michigan, who's also up this year, is the ranking member on Homeland Security, which oversees the post office. And I think you're going to start seeing a ramp up of media and publicity about what's really going on there, and the just complete dysfunction that is coming from the top. This is an orchestrated effort from the top. You know, for a long time, the administration has wanted to dismantle the post office because they don't think it functions, and it's not doing what they want it to do. And so now with this pandemic, and now knowing that there will be so many ballots coming in the mail, they're just afraid that will work against them. So they're doing everything they can, in my view, to destroy the post office, to destroy the Postal Workers Union, which has fought so hard over the years for their health care and their benefits. So the first thing that Democrats are going to do, and I think y'all can help with this, is just bring it to the public's attention, because people so much depend on. I know we're doing Zooms and we're doing emails, but the post office is still a very important part of people's lives, especially in those rural areas where they don't have this internet and they don't always get Amazon Prime. They depend on it for drugs, often to delivery, life-saving drugs that come through the post office. They do other things. So we've got to just raise the awareness of what's really happening with the post office. It is one of those issues that if we can get back to the table to talk about trying to do the right thing by the American people instead of just a political thing, the post office is right up there at the top with the priorities that Democrats have. We know it's important, and we know it's important not just for this election and giving people the right to vote. It is just a part of the fabric of America that we've got to save. So it is, I think, educating people about the problems, elevating the dialogue about those problems, and then letting us try to get to the financial part of it and the oversight through the Homeland Security Committee that we hope we can do if we can get Ron Johnson, the chairman from Wisconsin, to quit issuing stupid subpoenas about Ukraine.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Hey, Lori, yes. Thank you.
I appreciate your answer. That was very good. And I am very worried about the way that Donald Trump is handling things, in that his goal is to sabotage the election.
Yeah, it's a very real concern, and we've got to do. I mean, we really have to make sure we are in a different world right now, and we are going to have to be very careful. And for the folks on this call, we're going to be really needing to think outside the box a little bit about how to handle a very difficult absentee ballot process in Alabama. Everybody knows it's difficult to do. You got, apply for an application with your photo ID, then get 2 signatures once you get the vote in. So we've got to really start really soon, I think, trying to educate people and help people that want that, because the one major area of voter suppression across the country, we saw it happen to Stacey Abrams in Georgia. The biggest area right now is absentee ballots are not the biggest issue for fraud. Absentee ballots are the biggest issue for suppression. They just are provisional. They don't get there, and they just don't get counted. So we got to start working now to make sure our ballots are safe, secure, on time, and they're done exactly the right way.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I appreciate that there's people like you in the Senate to make that happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lori.
All right, awesome. That was a great question. I'm sure it's something that's on a lot of people's minds right now, like you said, with all of the mail-in voting that we're going to be having. It looks like we have another question from someone who might be a little shy to be asking. The question is, what is Congress doing about his illegal orders? I'm assuming the his is Trump's illegal orders.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that right now. I would imagine that there's going to be some lawsuits filed, but you got to remember, even though they're illegal, they're also really not going to be very effective. For instance, the payroll tax cut is probably the biggest one that people ought to be concerned about, because it is the first salvo in trying to privatize Social Security and defund Medicare. That's exactly the first salvo. That's what Trump has said he wanted to do. It's what McConnell said he wanted to do. All these folks back in Tuberville, that's what they want to do. And essentially Tuberville has said the exact same thing. That is the first salvo, because the payroll tax funds Medicare. It funds Social Security. And if you don't collect those taxes, it doesn't mean that they're not due, because the president can't change the tax code. Only Congress can do that. So they're just not collecting them. The tax is still going to be due at the end of the year. And he said if he's reelected, he's going to make it permanent. Well, that's going to hurt Social Security, a fund that's already under stress. Medicare is already under stress. So we've got to make sure that that doesn't happen, number one. But he can direct it be withheld right now. But I'm not sure how businesses are going to react, because they're the ones on the hook ultimately for that. Some of the other orders about evictions, we've got to be very careful about. I think there can some things he can do and not do. Remember, a lot of what he's doing, y'all need to really look at what he did and didn't do as opposed to what he says. We all know there's often a difference between what he says and what he does. And he only issued one executive order, and the other 3 are just memorandum. And I think that they've gone too far. They're not going to have an effect. The payroll tax is one, but the unemployment compensation, we've already had our budget folks in Alabama saying, we don't know if we can do this, because we're already underwater with or almost underwater with our unemployment trust fund. I don't know if Alabama can do it. It's putting an undue burden on them. And that's why I'm saying when these things really get analyzed and come out to light, I'm just not sure how much effect they're going to be. And that's when they're going to come back and start really discussing, because I believe there's going to be some serious blowback. I wouldn't be surprised to see some lawsuits being filed. I don't know if Congress will do that or not. Maybe we'll see. But I think the main thing is, again, as people educate, they're going to come back and they're going to say that we need to sit down and talk, and we need to do this bigger package. There's so much that's not included in what the president did. That's not included. Schools, testing, city and county governments that are not getting funded. All of those things, that's where people are going to rise up and start revolting.
Absolutely. It looks like we have a question from Helen Gillespie. Helen, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hey, Helen.
Hi. The question that I have, and this is coming from a veteran, mind you, do you anticipate there ever being a compulsory service, not just the military, but perhaps somebody can do their service as first responders or in the medical field or even K through 12 teaching, some type of program like that? Do you anticipate that ever being put in place for the USA?
You know, I'm not sure about compulsory, but I know my friend Chris Coons from Delaware is working on a program like that that would not be compulsory, but it would give a lot of incentives to do that. And I think we're going to need that a lot as we come out of this pandemic, whether it is contact tracers or first responders or a lot of things. So I think that's going to be the first way we try to do that, to give incentives for folks to do that. You know, even if it's a college student that doesn't really want to go to law school the year right afterwards or get to graduate school or something, or right out of high school, they don't want to go to college. I think there's a lot of ways we can do that. We can get a lot of services done without making it compulsory. I think it would be a little bit harder to do right now, but I know Chris is really passionate about those issues that he's working on like that. And we actually had a bill that was kind of included in the first CARES Act that would kind of do that some for healthcare workers, to keep kind of a ready reserve corps for healthcare workers. They have their other jobs, and almost like the National Guard for healthcare workers. So I think you're going to see a lot of things like that as well. We're going to need that. I mean, we're going to need that. And I'll give you the best example. And it's not first responders. What we really need is a ready reserve corps for unemployment compensation adjusters in Alabama. That's why the delay so much for people getting their unemployment claims. There's just not enough people to adjudicate the claims. It takes longer than people think. It's not a question of just literally filling out something and sending it in and you get your money. It's pretty a complicated process, not just in Alabama, but across the country. It's a good question though, Helen. Thank you.
Yeah, it was an excellent question. Looks like we have a question now from Leanne Childers. Leanne, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Mr. Jones, I wanted to know if any debates have been scheduled yet between Tommy Tuberville and you.
Oh, no. You know, they have not. We're getting asked. There's several invitations that are pending, and we're telling folks, sure, we happily to accept, you know, but I don't, quite frankly, I don't anticipate. Look, if Tommy Tuberville wouldn't debate Jeff Sessions, would you really think he wants to get on a stage with me? I mean, I know the issues. The only issue in a Sessions-Tuberville debate was who's Donald Trump's best buddy. I know the issues and I know a lot of the facts, and he doesn't. So I don't know. I don't anticipate it. We are responding to any number of requests, and we're always telling folks, yes, we're happy to try to figure out how to debate. You know, he's not responded affirmatively any of them. So, I mean, I don't want to do 40 of these things, but if he starts, you know, feeling the pressure and starts doing some, but I'd love to be able to do it. I think Alabama people, the American public deserves to see the candidates side by side and on the issues and hear what they've got to say. So we'll see. Stay tuned.
I think many of us would be very eager to see Tommy Tuberville try to go up against you, Senator. And it looks like we have a question here from Judith Rogers. Judith?
Hello. I have actually a couple of questions. Could someone type in the chat box the actual site for us to check the real facts about the negative advertising so that we can all have that in the chat box? Yeah. But my other questions were, is there a unified campaign plan for Alabama? Will you have a headquarters in Montgomery? And how can we as volunteers help you in your campaign the most?
Yes, ma'am. I cut two things about that. One, there will be a coordinated campaign that the Alabama Democratic Party is putting together. We are working with them carefully. We've got a joint fundraising campaign, the Doug Jones Victory Fund, where monies will come to my campaign and then go to the state party federal campaign, the joint account. There will be some others I think that the state can do that I can't really raise money for. But we're going to try to coordinate most of the get out the vote effort with the Alabama Democratic Party. I feel really good about the leadership down there at the Alabama Democratic Party now. They are really gung-ho. If y'all have seen the social media that's come out of the party in the last couple of months, it's just been, it just is kicks, man, I'm telling you. And so we're doing that. We're raising money for the party to do that through the federal campaign part. And that's where it'll come from. A lot of folks that are interested in helping with that, that'll be that coordinated campaign, because we do have congressional races. We've got the Public Service Commission race. We've got some local races. So we'll do all of that. That's traditionally how this has been done. It's just that we hadn't been able to do that through the party in many, many, many years. So I'm really happy that we're going to be able to do that. Folks can coordinate that way. So that's number one. Whether I think there may have been another part of that question that I got so excited about with the party that I forgot.
Well, that was great. And you're right. I think anyone who's been paying any attention to the state party and what they've been doing, what they've been putting out there, it's really exciting. It's a great time to be a Democrat in Alabama.
Lisa, I know what she said. What can we do to help you?
Yes.
Duh. Okay. So here's the thing right now. We're putting together a lot of things for the coordinated campaign, and we're in a different world, and we know that. And it is a challenge to try to figure out. We got people all over. First of all, we're getting our yard signs out again. I hope that Madison County and the North Alabama is getting blanketed pretty good with yard signs. We've got a lot more, and we're going to have some more coming. Talk to the headquarters about that. We send these out almost daily. There are groups going out there with the yard signs, and that's a big deal. A lot of yard signs, especially in areas like in 2017 where you don't expect them, and that's a big deal for us. The other thing we're asking people to do right now is to get engaged on social media, do it in a respectful way. I don't want my folks arguing and fighting and saying ugly things on social media like we see certain people do. That's number one. Engage people. The alabamafacts.com, push it out there so that people see what's going on with it and see these ads and what it really means. That's going to help us a lot. When you see our social media, put it out there, put my record out there, because my record is your record. And we want as many people as possible to know about that. We want folks engaged with, writing letters to the editor for those in areas where there is actually a newspaper, as opposed to just al.com, letters to the editor to counter some of these things that folks like Steve Flowers and these other so-called, political pundits talk about. They're really just kind of Republican hacks, but to counter some of that with facts, we're helping to coordinate that. Radio call-in shows, again, in a very respectful way, to talk about the race, calling people, engaging in dialogues. Those are the kind of things that we're going to be doing more and more of. This is going to be a campaign that we're going to be doing a lot of virtual reaching out by Zooms, by teletown halls. I'm doing a lot of telephone town halls. We're going to be doing a lot more of those as time goes on. Right now, we're just mainly doing those through the official side of the house, but we will ultimately move some and do different kinds when we do it on the campaign side. So right now, I think is engaging as many people as possible, because there's a lot of folks out there who don't know my record. They don't follow it that much. They're going to see these ads. You're going to need to tell them about them. And also try to point to my record. Guys, I got to tell you, I've been in the Senate for 2.5 years, a freshman coming in from Alabama, and I've got 21 bills bipartisan bills that I was the lead or co-lead on, not just that I've sponsored, but lead or co-lead, and then that's been passed and signed into law. And I'm going to tell you, if you go back and look at history, that's a hell of a record, folks. I'm really proud of that. And it's because we've got the ability to work both sides of the aisle. And people of Alabama, they may be partisan, and sometimes they're really ugly partisan, but the fact of the matter is they want somebody who's going to get something done. And the only way you can get something done is to work on both sides of the aisle. And that's what I've been really successful at, trying to make sure that people understand that I'm not compromising principles, but I can help get things done. That's my nature, and that's what we've done. So the more we can get that out, the better. There'll be other ways as we come up. I think April Hodges, who's in Huntsville on the campaign up there, maybe putting in the chat. about the website and how to volunteer and those kind of things, because there's going to be a lot of opportunities between now and November 3rd.
Absolutely. And for those who were asking earlier, we did add that website that the senator referenced in the chat box. So for anybody to definitely check those sources and share those facts. So we are spreading correct information out there. Now it looks like we have a question from Caroline. Caroline, are you there? Caroline?
You're unmuted, Caroline, or it looks like you are.
Yeah. Well, I'll ask her, ask on her behalf. She says, would you mind talking about the poll that put Tommy Tuberville so far ahead and Mitch McConnell as well? That recent poll that they put
Yeah,
out.
that was the Morning Consult poll. And let me just tell you two things. One, we've been in the field since January when I took office, and that poll is just way off. It's been way off. It was off before in 2017. But if you look real closely at some of the things they did, they scale this, which is not unusual for polling sometimes when they don't get the right demographics. But one of the things that they used was historic presidential election data. Well, hell, folks, if you look, at what happened in Alabama historically on a presidential election, you're going to completely overlook 2017. You're going to overlook all the votes that Walt Maddox got in 2018. And more importantly, you don't have your ear to the ground on what's going on in Alabama and the changes that we're seeing across the state. So we weren't worried about that at all. And here's the proof in the pudding. Yeah, you really think that they'd be spending $5 or $6 million in August if they thought that poll was correct? They'd have moved on. They'd have said, we got this one. We're going to move on to another race that we got to keep. So we just don't think much about that. We're doing a lot of our information. We know this race is going to be tough. Now, don't get me wrong. This is kind of one of those neck and neck races right now. But part of the problem is that Sessions ran a horrible campaign. I mean, he just ran a bad campaign, and he never touched Tuberville. And there's a lot there that we don't need to get to on this. You'll see it coming out. There's a lot that he's going to have to answer for. And when he starts talking about the issues, there's even going to be more that he's got to answer for because he doesn't really know the issues. So stay tuned. It's all good. Trust me, all good. We're raising money well. We're doing the things that we need to, right? We've got our finger on the pulse of the people in Alabama. The key for us is getting our votes out. That is going to be the key. It's always the key, but especially we were able to do it in 2017, and it was a razor thin race. It may be razor thin again, so every vote counts.
Absolutely. Getting the vote out, it should be imperative every year, but especially this year, I think we can say. Now it looks like our next question is going to be from Wendy McGee. Wendy, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. There are so many issues. What's the best elevator speech we can give on your behalf, Senator, when we encounter people interested in learning more about you?
Healthcare and leadership, and the accomplishments that we've been able to do. 21 bipartisan bills that covers everything from veterans and civil rights to small businesses. I think if folks can get a sense of those bills that we were able to do. Now, some are a little wonky. I mean, that we did for some bankers and some things. But, most of these people that have been conditioned a little bit because they believe that Democrats are just so far to the left that they're socialist. And, folks, and there may be some people on this call that think of themselves that way. I don't know. But the fact is, I'm not, never have been. And, the last, for folks who are fairly conservative to moderate that might be leaning this way, remind them that in the last 2 months, I've received the top 3 awards from the United States Chamber of Commerce for my bipartisanship and for my protection of the free enterprise system and the things that we've done. Now, that's no kind of crazy left-wing group. That is the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And so the point is that don't believe everything you see. Don't just listen to the old labels that are out there and the checklist that we've got. look at the record. And when they see things we've done, for instance, like for veterans, getting rid of the military widows tax that was tried for 20 years, and I got it done. The other small business bills that we were able to get done, the work that we've done on armed services to strengthen our nation's military, and at the same time bring jobs and money into Alabama to help our Alabama's economy. Those are important things, but also just, I think, somewhat, we've tried to show some leadership in this pandemic. I mean, I have been every week having a conference a press conference where we're talking about the health of Alabama, wearing masks, doing those things that are not designed to be political, but to try to inform people, to educate people, to do those things. This is more than a little elevator speech. You got to kind of drill that down. But the fact is, I'm not the person in the ads, and they need to look at it, because if they look at my record, here's the bottom line. Tommy Tuberville says he's only running because he'll always have Donald Trump's back. Anybody can do that, folks. Doug Jones is going to have your back. You're not going to agree with him 100% of the time. No one does, but he's going to have your back. He listens, he's responsive, and he does those things for people in Alabama across the board, regardless of which zip code they are or where they are, who they are. And that's what we need. We need a senator who's looking out for us in Alabama, regardless of who you vote for president. I think that's probably the best line.
I think I'd have to agree with that. It looks like our next question is going to be from Cindy. Cindy, are you there?
Yes, Lisa, I'm here.
Hey, Cindy.
Can you hear me? Hi, Senator. It's so good to hear you. My question is, we have a Supreme Court where Mitch McConnell a few years ago would not fill a seat over a year before President Obama's term ended because he said it was too soon. Can you foresee him trying to replace somebody if something, God forbid, were to happen to one of our liberal justices and trying to force something through, even if it's right before or right after the election? And can anything circumvent that?
Nothing that I know of. And yes, I do see him doing that. He's basically said that. And some of his colleagues, Joni Ernst and others, have said, sure. And here's how they play these word games to distinguish it. When he did that with Merrick Garland, which I just thought was a travesty, he said it was because you had a president of one party and the Senate was controlled by a different party. Well, that's just a specious argument. I mean, it really is. Either the Constitution doesn't talk about political parties, and the election doesn't do that in terms of who's going to win and lose. So it's a specious argument. But the fact is, he's made it pretty clear that if something happens, he will do what it takes to try to get that through. Lindsey Graham is chairman of Judiciary. He is going to do the same thing, even if it's a lame duck session of Congress, even if we have a new president and a new Congress coming in with a different majority. He will do what it can. And I will tell you, it will be very difficult to stop that under the Senate rules. If they want to cram this through, they are likely to be able to do it, just like they did with so many other things. And the only hope that you might see is that there would be enough Republicans who are concerned that they would not allow it to happen. Because I think if that would happen, those Republicans that are up in 2022 would be really, I think, very vulnerable, regardless of where they stand on most of the issues. So you'd really have to hope, and we'd have to try to convince at least 4 Republicans to not allow that to happen. 4. That's all you need.
Wow. It looks like we have another question. They asked me to read it. This is from Nick Anderson. He said, Mr. Senator, I just left the Navy in January and returned to Huntsville. I've spent the last 10 years trying to help sailors survive financially. Despite the president's raises His attack on housing allowances and his new tax law has caused enlisted servicemen and women under unnecessary financial burdens. Is there anything you can do to help my enlisted sisters and brothers be relieved of some of this burden instead of the defense contractors and senior officials?
Nick, that's a great question. And I've not ever heard a question like that put that way. This is what I'd like for you to do. I'd like for you to call my office there, call Kate or Rick or somebody in the Huntsville office there in Huntsville, and go over this with them and see. We're still, the Senate passed our NDAA, which gives another pay raise, and it does some other things. We really kind of focused on families. That's going to go to conference, though. The House has a little bit different version, so it's going to go to conference. And so there's still a chance that we can be able to pull a rabbit out of the hat if it's not addressed in this NDAA. So call the Huntsville office and get with them and let's drill down on that a little bit. And if we can't do it in this NDAA, you get me reelected, and we'll make sure that you and some of your folks are front and center when we start doing this next year.
Absolutely. It looks like we have another question from Lane Clemens. Lane, are you there? Lane? Well, he definitely had a really important question about Medicaid expansion. He said there's no better, more urgent time than now.
Yeah.
What is the campaign strategy and plan to put out creative and clear messaging? And what is your plan basically to talk about Medicaid expansion? I know you've been speaking on it, but.
Yeah, look, our plan is to do what we've been doing, and that is to just basically stay on a soapbox. Because Lane's absolutely right. There's no better time for Alabama to do it. And if at one point I would have said, well, this pandemic has caused their budgets to be strapped, and it probably is not a good time unless we can go back and give states the incentives to do it, giving the federal government 100% reimbursement. But now I'm hearing from Alabama anyway. Now, cities and counties are different, but the state budget folks are saying, we're okay. We're not great, but we're okay. Well, okay, if you're fine, you need to go ahead and pony up and expand Medicaid. There's a lot of talk in Montgomery about it, but it's difficult to get them to pull the trigger when there's so much money, even though billions of dollars would come in the minute that they do it. So the thing that I'm doing is continuing to stand on a soapbox and preach about it. We know that overwhelmingly the people of Alabama support it. We're losing rural hospitals. The folks like the Alabama Hospital Association support it. Doctors, nurses, local officials support it. We just can't get a Republican gerrymandered legislature to do it because it's not politically popular. I had hoped that we could get Medicaid expansion incentives in the next COVID package, that in Alabama would do it. I think if we could give those incentives for the 100% reimbursement, Alabama would, I think that they would do it. I just don't think I can get it in there. There is such political pushback on the Affordable Care Act that Republicans just don't want to touch it. They don't want to give any legitimacy to it when the administration is in the courts right now, the Supreme Court of the United States, trying to dismantle it, to declare it unconstitutional. And I hope you guys realize that lawsuit, which we're trying to do, that lawsuit, if it is successful, will completely dismantle the ACA. It will will hurt people that have pre-existing conditions, which is about 800, 900,000 people in Alabama under the age of 65. It's going to throw their health care in jeopardy, not to mention those that can benefit from Medicaid expansion. And that case was brought by a group of states, and you got it. Alabama is one of those states. The Attorney General's office is right there in the middle of this. So, hopefully we can get a new administration and maybe cut the legs out from under that lawsuit. And if we can do that, then I think that there might be some ability to get folks in Congress to give states some incentives. We need to do that to pass. But I think Medicaid expansion is a good political issue. It is one because people care about their neighbors. The one thing that this pandemic has really shown is, and there's a lot of things, is that our health, my health, is dependent on yours, and yours is dependent on mine. And if we can keep our neighbors healthy by expanding Medicaid, we need to do it. I was on a call just before this one, and the question was a friend of hers, same question about Medicaid, but she prefaced by saying a friend of hers is employed, makes too much to qualify for Medicaid in Alabama, but not enough to afford health care. And under the exchanges or either an employer sponsored. That's who this would help. That's who we need to get these health Medicaid expansion for. It would help health outcomes, not to mention the billions of dollars of federal dollars that would come in to Alabama. So I'm going to keep speaking it, speaking truth to power, stand up, speak out, cause a little good trouble.
Absolutely. And we have another question here from Stuart Oberman. Stuart, are you there? Stuart? I'll go ahead and ask his question. It says, if we're successful in November of taking the Senate, the White House, and retaining leadership in the House, what do you think the first 3 or 4 things the Democratic majority would do to recover from the 4 years of national decline?
Well, I think a lot of things will be, first of all, we don't know where we're going to be in this pandemic. And I was reading something today that Joe Biden put out about his immediate actions about working with our healthcare community and Dr. Fauci and making this serious and making the pandemic, making vaccines, making all those things to distribute them. That would be his number one priority if we're still there. And I think we will be in January. So that is still, I believe, going to consume some time. I think my battery's running low here, guys. I may have to plug in. Can y'all still hear me?
Yes, we can still hear you.
Okay, I'm not sure you can see me.
No.
Let me see if I can. I didn't plug in here. Y'all give me just a second, see if I can plug in. Hopefully get back up.
No problem.
I will tell you, folks, my iPad and phones really get plugged in. I don't think that one's working. It just says I'm at 10% battery, so we better hurry. Oh, there I'm back. Maybe it's charging a little bit now. I apologize, guys. So I think the priority is likely to be our healthcare. And I think you're going to see whether it's expansion of Medicaid, whether it is Medicare options, a public option for for public health. You're not going to see Medicare for all, but I do think Joe is really going to push a Medicare option for folks, a public option for people. I think health is still going to dominate things in January, but can count on a few other things like election security, the Voting Rights Act, and trying to put teeth in that. Those are those kind of things that I think will hit the ground running and doing. He will probably likely do some executive orders. I'm not a big fan of executive orders, but I think there's going to be such momentum if that happens that folks will do those kind of things. We're not going to do things that are just going to go absolutely crazy. What I think needs to happen is we deal with the pandemic, we deal with health, and we show the American people that we care about them. And that's something that you don't really see from this administration. It's all about his reelection. It's all about, Wall Street buddies some. I think those kind of things that we can do, and they don't have to be the grand things, but those things that mean something to people at their kitchen tables that we've talked about so much. That's what I want to see Joe do. That's what I think he has the opportunity to do, because that's who he is. That's where his heart is. And that's where I believe you'll see these things go. Then we'll start looking as we go forward. You'll start looking at infrastructure. Broadband is going to be a big issue. I think they're going to push that big time. I'm going to push it big time. So there's things on the horizon when we get to stimulus packages, because we ain't doing stimulus right now. People call it a stimulus. We ain't done any stimulus, folks. We've been trying to save lives, save livelihoods, save the economy. We haven't done anything to stimulate things yet. We're going to be working on that. But those are kind of the, not real specific, a couple of specifics, but I think he's going to do things that are going to go straight to the people to help people in America. You might see an effort to kind of give some kind of raise to the minimum wage, which I think would be a big deal too. You know, a living wage.
Absolutely. I feel like feels like there's so many things that need to be done right now.
Oh,
So it's hard
yeah.
to even know what the priorities are, but those are
Yeah.
all wonderful things that we hope we can accomplish in the next couple of years. I think we have Lane back on. Give Lane an opportunity to speak if he's able to. Lane, are you there? Are you able to unmute yourself? All right. Well, we tried. Let's move on to Stephanie Green has a question for you. Stephanie, are you there? Stephanie?
Yes, he
Hi,
is.
I'm here.
Oh, there she is.
Hi, Senator Jones.
Hi.
It was my pleasure to be a volunteer in your campaign for 2018, and I am again. We've done a few text campaigns, but I was wondering if we're going to do any type of a virtual fundraiser, maybe a large one with talent, musicians from Alabama.
Well, we're certainly open. You know, Jason Isbell said that he is always open to do one for me. Jason was down, but one of the most fun things we've done this year was right before we started shutting down. We had a big thing at the Lyric where Jason was it was just Jason, and he was awesome. So yeah, we're trying to look at that and touching base with some folks. Jason said he would help, and if you've got any contacts or you got any specifics that y'all would like to see, we're open to those, because right now we're going to be doing more and more virtual events. I mean, I got to tell you folks, I don't want to put my staff or my supporters in jeopardy. Unlike some of the other folks that we see on the other side that just don't give a damn, I do. And so we're going to be doing more and more of these virtual things, and it's easier to get the talent to be able, because the time they don't have to travel, it doesn't cost as much. So we're going to be looking at that. I think in the next 60, 90 days, you'll see a number of things from both Alabama talent and probably, you know, some other folks. We've got a couple of things planned with some of the civil rights community around my book and some things like that too. So stay tuned. But if you've got any suggestions, things you would love to see, let us know, because we're wide open and the schedule is wide open right now. I stay pretty busy, but we'd love to do some of those things. I think Jason's the number one right now, but you know, we had St. Paul and the Broken Bones the last go round. I'm gonna talk to Paul again, I think, to see what they might can do.
Well, any and all of that would be amazing. I think a lot of people would agree with that. Would be exciting. We are kind of wrapping up here. So we do have one last question that we will get to here, and that's going to be from Pat Ciano. Pat, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me, Lisa?
We can hear you, Pat.
It was not actually a question. I just wanted to remind everybody that's on the call tonight. I'm not sure, Senator Jones, if you're even aware, but there's going to be a texting training tomorrow night by your campaign. They're going to kick off the texting part of the campaign, which I personally think is going to be exciting. And one of the ways that we can actually make a big dent in younger people and people who we can't traditionally contact by phone calls, and obviously with COVID can't do door knocking with. So I'm really excited about the texting campaign that's going to be kicking off, and I just wanted to make sure everybody knew about that.
Thank you, Pat.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is, so Senator, is that the webinar you guys will be putting on tomorrow for people to attend and those are interested in volunteering?
I guess so. That's just not something they know that I'm like technology impaired, so they don't get me involved in stuff like that. So, but yes, that's the kind of thing that we're doing. And there'll be more of those. I mean, we're doing a lot of trainings for texting, for the things. And that's why we were talking about too, for y'all to think about, if you've got some ideas about how we can reach people, let the campaign know, because we are in a new world and we are trying to figure out this like you guys are. So anything you can do to help us out with your ideas, nothing is too big, nothing is too small right now, to try to get in the hopper to see what we can do.
Absolutely. And we also, for those here, there is a link in the chat box to that information he just discussed. So you can see what's coming up, where you can get involved, where you can kind of plug into to help the campaign. And, you know, we all have different ways that we can contribute, and we all should. And on that note, there is another way that you can contribute. And that, again, I'll speak for the senator, is donations. We, you know, that's definitely something that helps power the campaign and helps, you know, further this cause and this fight that we all are desperately, you know, supporting the senator on, to help him keep supporting us and keep, you know, advocating for us in the Senate. So any donations that you're able to make tonight will go towards Senator Jones's reelection campaign. Every little bit helps, whether you're volunteering, whether it's your dollars, any and all of it, it definitely helps the cause. And we're very grateful. We're also grateful, Senator Jones, thank you again for you taking the time to be with us tonight. It was so wonderful to hear from you and all the great things that you've done and continue to do for us. We are just, I think I can speak for everyone here, that we are just very proud of the way you've represented us up until this point, and how we know that you will represent us going forward. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Lisa. You're very kind. Thanks, everybody. I really enjoyed being with you tonight. I wish we were all there for group hugs, but we will be able to do that sometime.
Hopefully sooner rather than later, but safely for sure. And just to say, just as we end here, I just want to, you know, if you enjoyed this event, again, please consider donating to us today. We are also excited to announce the next speaker in our series, which will be the chair of the Alabama Democratic Party, Representative Chris England, which will be August 25th. That'll be another great speaking engagement that we will be hosting here. Again, that's August 25th. So mark your calendars for that, and kind of keep an eye out for in your inbox and on social media. Make sure you're following us so you can hear all the updates. And again, we'll be sharing information on Senator Jones's campaign as well, so to make sure that you get plugged in. And again, thank you all for coming, and we hope to see you again soon. Good night.